Hello, Fish Faithful. This is Marlins Daily on the Fan Arch Network. I am Kurt Semder, and the Marlins did not get off to a great start in New York last night. A 4-2 loss to the Mets. Not a great game all the way around. This game was right there for the taking, but ultimately, the Marlins lose their fourth straight in New York and drop back to 500 on the season now at 55 and 55. Once again, losing this game 4-2. And, this was a team in the Mets that you kind of were hoping that coming off the sweep of the Phillies, the Marlins would be able to take advantage of and keep the winning ways going and keep streaking with their offense. And it just didn't get done as they ran into a pitcher in Nolan McLean who was just dealing from the get go. And, Yuri Perez matched him inning for inning for the most part there in the beginning. He was really cruising through the first four innings of this game. But Perez ran into trouble, 5 innings rather. Perez really, though, running into some trouble in the sixth. And that's when things kind of fell apart for the team at that point. Um, Kyle Stowers continues to do what we want him to do here in these big spots, launching yet another home run that put the Marlins in front early in this game, 1-0. And then, as we mentioned, Perez ran into that trouble in the sixth, giving up a walk here and then a single and then an error at third base by Graham Pauley led to the Mets going in front 2-1. And at that point, you started to be a little worried, but then Marlins did what they've been doing as of late. They bounced back. They came back right away. Jacob Marcy blasting a home run just over the fence in right field to tie this game up at 2. And kudos to Clayton McCullough and the staff for giving Marcy the green light on 3-0 to swing. And I think that's a great move. That's what you got to do when you've got a young hitter who is struggling. You pretty much know you're going to get a fastball there. And if you don't, whatever, it's 3-1. But you gave him the green light. He got the fastball he was looking for, and he belted it just out of the reach of Carson Benj there in right field. And what you got then at that point is a 2-2 game. Things looking good. You think maybe, you can get to this Mets bullpen going forward from there. But in the eighth inning, they struggled once again. Michael Peterson, who's been so good this season for the team, I don't know, maybe feeling some of the effects of that line drive he took off the forearm a couple days ago, had some issues, gave up the big hit to Luis Robert Jr. that drove in 2 runs and put them in front 4-2. And, Miami had their chances against Devin Williams in the ninth. They got a runner on early, but could not get the big hit to tie this game up. And as a result, you'll drop the first game of this series 4-2. And as I mentioned, that's 4 straight losses to the Mets in New York. They swept the Mets in Miami to start the season, but since then have not been able to figure them out and put themselves right back at the 500 mark. Look, one game here at this point is not going to kill you, and it's not going to impact this team's plans approaching the deadline, but what happens the rest of this weekend definitely will. So it's up to them now to just brush this off, move on, and get on to the game later today and the games this weekend, because they're going to be extremely important for what happens the rest of the way here for the Marlins. And that, of course, is because the trade deadline is coming up this weekend, and I'm at the start of next week. And I started thinking about the deadline a little bit more because we've been, seeing a lot of updates and rumors and things flying around all week. Not a lot of big updates from yesterday as we head into today here on Friday. But I started to wonder, has this trade deadline perhaps become a bit of a distraction for the Marlins? And I think it might be. You have a young team here that is, still trying to find their way off of that 12-game losing streak. They got their confidence back with the sweep of the Phillies, but it's lingering over the heads of a lot of the players on the team. We mentioned that there are reports out that the Marlins front office is willing to listen to other teams' offers when it comes to some of their bigger players, and you start to wonder if perhaps it's affecting them, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. You see things, Otto Lopez has an 0 for 4. He's been one of the big players that's been mentioned here. Xavier Edwards only has 1 hit in the game. Some of these younger guys on the team who have been mentioned in trade rumors may be letting it affect their play on the field. And you hope that that's not the case. And I don't know really what the front office can do other than simply saying that they're not trading some of these guys. They've done that with some of their players, whether it's Sandy or, Yuri Perez went out there and pitched great. He knows he's not going anywhere. But you want to be careful. You want to be careful. You definitely want to, listen to everybody's offers, see if there's something out there for some of your players, something that blows you away. But you also don't want to affect these guys on the field right now when every game is so important. And the most important thing that you can do is give these guys the confidence and give these guys the ability to just focus on what they need to do on the field and not worry about having to, go back to their locker or go back to their hotel room after the game and check Twitter or check online or check in with their agent to see what's going on. That's not going to help anybody, and that's not going to help Miami do what they need to do. So, we'll know what happens here at the deadline in just a couple of days, and any potential distractions will go away. But definitely be very careful. It's up to Clayton McCullough and the rest of these guys to just keep their players focused on what's going on the field between the lines and make sure they stay out of their heads, because that can really, really be damaging in a series, as I mentioned, that not only do the Marlins need to play well in and need to win, but they need to have their full focus on what's going on the field. So, as we mentioned, the deadline coming up here, and what I've also kind of seen, and we talked about this, that Miami's got a lot of players that are available, or at least they're listening to some of the other GMs around the league about who might be available. And, that obviously usually leads to a lot of speculation, leads to a lot of rumors, and it leads to a lot of, fan offers or things that you see online. And this time of year always drives me nuts, because some of the offers that you see people propose, man, you're happy that they're not GMs. These offers sometimes are absolutely terrible, and there's sometimes often a mentality that a team like Miami is just going to give away their best players. That you're going to just trade a guy like Otto Lopez to Boston or to the Yankees, and in return, we'll trade you our backup catcher and our number 15 prospect and that pitcher that we've sent down to the minors 2 or 3 times, and then you'll just give us your best player for those guys, right? No, that's not how this works. And if there's one thing Peter Bendix has been very good at, is getting value on any deals that he has made, or at least most of them. So I think it needs to be, for the real GMs and for fans who are out there kind of coming up with these proposals, do better. Because Miami doesn't have to trade Otto Lopez. They don't have to trade Xavier Edwards. They don't even have to trade Liam Hicks or Pete Fairbanks. But if you want those guys, let's get ready to deal. Bring a serious offer, especially for some of those guys I mentioned at the beginning, whether it's Otto or Xavier. Make sure you're going to make a big offer, because that's the only way Miami's going to part with these guys. When I say a big offer, I'm saying, if you're the Yankees, George Lombard Jr., your top prospect, probably isn't getting dealt, but let's talk about your number 2 or your number 3 prospect. Let's talk about someone ready on the major league level. Let's talk about another player down your farm system who will be ready to go in a year or 2. You're going to have to give something up to get one of the Marlins' best players. And there's always this mentality, especially, in the Northeast, that it's like, you know what, that we'll just get whoever we want and we won't have to give up much. It's not the case here. That's not the case here. And the offers need to be very, very strong. And I think Peter Bendix knows that. And I think that's really when they say that they're willing to listen, that's the difference between willing to listen and willing to move. And I don't think they're willing to move some of these guys that they're listening on unless the offers really do blow them away, really do impress them. And I said it before in a previous show, and I'm going to say it again here as we head into the weekend. I don't believe that the Marlins are going to trade Otto Lopez or Xavier Edwards. We heard now that they may not be seriously considering trading Heriberto Hernandez. So I think those guys are probably all still safe. We mentioned the pitchers are probably safe. I do think Liam Hicks will get moved. I do think Pete Fairbanks will get moved. And I do think at least one of the other guys from the bullpen will get traded as well. But other than that, Braxton Garrett maybe. I don't expect the Marlins to go out there and make a big addition to the team. I believe they'll try to do one of those addition by subtraction situations where they trade from a position of strength and fill a need on the major league roster somewhere else. Whether that is third base, where they seem to be okay with Jimenez and Sanoa right now, but if the right offer comes around, there are a couple of players that they were looking at earlier that I don't think are available right now. The Astros are really, really playing well, so I don't think they're looking to make any trades. I don't think they're looking to sell off any of their pieces. Some other teams that perhaps were in the mix are playing well now, the Red Sox being one of them. They're looking to add, as we mentioned. So the potential trade partners for Miami to add players by Monday seemingly are dropping by the day, which is why Miami is seriously considering possibly moving some of these guys on their own team to some of the contenders. But I wouldn't expect them to make that big splash that's going to add to the team this year. But I think you can probably count on some of the better players on this team still being here when the team takes the field in Atlanta on Tuesday. But before they can get to Atlanta, this team has to get through the Mets. And that's really where this weekend is going to be so crucial. They need to bounce back, and they need to do so in a hurry. They got to figure out a way to beat this team. They've got their best pitchers going. Whether they've got their starters, they got Jansen Junk going tonight. They've got Sandy going in this series. They got Tyler Phillips going to take the mound at one of these ones. But the Mets don't know exactly who they're going to be pitching against Sandy on Sunday. You do have to go through Freddie Peralta, who, although he has struggled, is still a very good pitcher and can put it together on you in a hurry. And he is pitching in a situation where he's kind of showcasing himself for other teams. So could be a tough matchup for them tonight. But nonetheless, these are the games you have to win. And with 3 more games against the last place team in your division, sitting at 500, I'll be generous and say you got to win 2 out of 3, although I think you should win all 3 of these games. So the weekend is very important for them, very crucial. And when we come back here on Marlins Daily next week, it will be trade deadline day. We're going to have a lot to break down, not just the series with the Mets and not just where the Marlins sit in the standings, but we will likely have some moves to break down and discuss. We'll have some possible rumors to discuss as the deadline approaches, and we'll have a lot more to talk about next week on Marlins Daily. So stick with us. Make sure, once again, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think of the deadline. Let me know some of your trade proposals. Hopefully they're better than some of the ones I've seen online so far this week. But for now, that's it for Marlins Daily. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see you all on Monday.